They told us they want to try again in a different area of the Indian Ocean.
This was the first definitive proof that the plane had indeed gone down in the Indian Ocean.
Years of searching, endless questions, and over $100 million spent.
And the question that I had to ask was, how is this possible?
Still, the world waited for answers on flight MH370.
That I had just found the second piece of debris in the greatest aviation mystery in history.
But the latest underwater drone missions have uncovered evidence that is hard to ignore.
He is now responsible for most of the pieces of debris of MH370 that have been recovered.
Some wish this never came to light. Stay tuned, because what they found is beyond what anyone imagined. The night contact was lost.
A Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
A plane disappearing into thin air feels like something that belongs in fiction. Yet that is what the world woke up to on March 8, 2014. The clock had barely struck midnight when the Boeing 777 prepared for departure at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. The aircraft, known as Malaysian Flight 370, had a planned routine journey to Beijing Capital International Airport. On board were 227 passengers from various countries and 12 crew members. The expected time of arrival in Beijing was around 6:30 in the morning, and the entire trip was meant to last 5 hours and 34 minutes. As the plane lifted off the runway, its engines hummed steadily, carrying the massive plane gracefully into the night sky. Everything appeared perfectly normal. The flight climbed to its cruising altitude and continued along its planned route. But less than 40 minutes after takeoff, that ordinary journey took an unexpected turn.
If you were doing something nefarious, then switching off ACOS, of making the plane go dark.
At precisely 1:19 a.m., the final known voice transmission came from the plane's cockpit. The words spoken were simple, calm, and professional. Good night, Malaysian 370.
370, 3 right of takeoff.
Now, this is a routine phrase used by pilots, and it signals the handover from one air traffic control zone to the next. Yet those few words marked the last clear contact anyone had with the aircraft. 2 minutes after that message, the aircraft's transponder suddenly stopped sending signals. Ground control relies on the transponder to receive essential flight data, including the plane's position from airborne aircraft. It was turned off just as the flight approached Vietnamese airspace over the South China Sea. But this was not the first system to go dark. At 1:07 a.m., about 12 minutes before the transponder went silent, the plane's aircraft communication addressing and reporting system sent its final data transmission. After that, it too stopped sending signals. The Aircraft Communication Addressing and Reporting System, or ACARS, provides real-time information about the aircraft's performance to airline operators and maintenance teams. With both the ACARS and transponder disabled, the plane became nearly impossible to track by civilian air traffic controllers. To those on the ground, it was as if the jet had disappeared entirely from the radar. Silence replaced the steady stream of data that had been coming in, and confusion began to spread. No distress call was ever made. No indication of trouble came from the cockpit. One moment, everything was normal. Next, the aircraft was virtually invisible. But before we get into the efforts that followed, including the drones that searched the deep sea, it is important to understand how those first few quiet minutes set the stage for one of aviation's greatest mysteries. The radar trail of Flight 370. Not every radar tells the whole story, but the ones hidden from public eyes sometimes reveal more than expected. While normal radar systems struggled to track the missing aircraft, the Malaysian military turned to more advanced technology. Their defense radar had the ability to trace objects in the sky, even when devices like transponders were switched off.
Either it was intentional and someone tried to turn all of those systems off at once.
However, during the initial investigation stages, military officials were reluctant to share critical data that might reveal their radar system capabilities. Ultimately, they chose to reveal their observations, which showed through radar records that Malaysian flight MH370 had abruptly altered its course. It first turned back toward the southwest, cutting across the Malay Peninsula. Not long after flying over land, it changed course again, and this time it headed northwest, flying over the dark waters of the Strait of Malacca.
Initially, when the airplane made a turn without talking to air traffic control, in my mind, all bets were off.
To this day, no one really knows why the aircraft strayed from its original route. For one, a mechanical issue could have thrown it off course. Maybe the flight system adjusted itself, or perhaps someone on board made that choice. Now, while all this was happening, a pilot from another plane tried to make contact with Flight 370. They used the international emergency frequency to send a message from Vietnamese air traffic control asking the crew to respond. For a brief moment, there was a reply, but it was hard to make sense of it. The voice was weak and broken, buried under static and strange sounds. It was unclear if the voice belonged to someone from the missing aircraft. At 2:22 a.m., the last known trace of Flight 370 appeared on Malaysian military radar as the plane traveled over the Andaman Sea. After that, it vanished from all screens. The aircraft slipped into the night sky with no further signs of its location. As the hours passed, concern grew rapidly. By 7:24 a.m., Malaysia Airlines publicly announced that Flight 370 was officially missing.
Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 an accident.
But more questions surfaced instead. Satellite data later revealed that the plane was still airborne at that time. At 8:11 a.m., a British company called Inmarsat recorded one final electronic signal from the aircraft. It was a satellite ping, the last digital trace confirming the plane was still somewhere out there. After that, silence. Investigators pulled together radar readings, satellite signals, and the small bits of information they had. From what they could tell, Flight 370 kept flying until it reached the southern Indian Ocean. The widely accepted theory is that the aircraft eventually ran out of fuel. Following this, it then crashed into the sea between 8:19 and 9:15 a.m. But no one can say for certain where or when it happened. The search that followed was unlike anything before. Several countries joined forces, deploying planes and ships. Underwater equipment were also used to search vast sections of the ocean. The mission cost millions of dollars and covered thousands of miles. But now, more than a decade later, there is a new chapter. Underwater drones exploring the ocean floor have finally uncovered evidence linked to Flight 370.
Well, after more than a decade, one of aviation's greatest mysteries could soon be solved with a new search commencing for MH370 off the coast of WA.
But where exactly was this wreckage found? And what did the search teams discover beneath the waves? Stay with us to learn how these deep-sea missions brought answers to a mystery that has haunted the world for years. The clues that led nowhere. The disappearance of the plane left families across 4 continents shattered.
3 generations of my family. This is the extinction of my whole family.
The idea that a highly advanced aircraft, equipped with modern systems and multiple backup communications, could simply vanish seemed impossible. In an age where deleting an email permanently is almost impossible, and going off the grid intentionally is difficult, the vanishing of a Boeing 777 without a trace seemed beyond belief. These planes are designed to be trackable at all times. And so, while the world mourned the people lost on Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, the search for answers was already underway. Top of the list was locating the aircraft's black box. Finding this could help explain what had gone wrong. At first, the operation focused on the South China Sea, between Malaysia and Vietnam. The mission quickly became international, with 34 ships and 28 aircraft from 7 different countries working together to track down the missing plane. But as the days passed, it became clear the plane was not there. New clues pointed investigators in a completely different direction. After carefully studying the satellite communications between the aircraft and an Inmarsat satellite, experts realized the plane had traveled much farther south than expected, deep into the southern Indian Ocean.
Basically on a southwestern heading, and disappeared into the vastness of the Indian Ocean.
This discovery completely changed the search. 1 week after the plane vanished, efforts shifted far from the original location. What made this even stranger was the timeline. That leg of the flight took over an hour, which did not fit the usual pattern for hijackings. It also did not match any known cases of pilot suicide or accidental crashes. From the start, this investigation pushed experts into unfamiliar territory. MH370 did not follow any of the usual rules. The first stage of the search lasted 52 days. It relied heavily on aircraft, covering around 1 million square miles. Hundreds of search flights were conducted, all scouring the vast stretches of ocean and land for any sign of MH370. Despite the scale of the operation, the aircraft remained missing. In January 2017, after searching more than 46,000 square miles of the Indian Ocean floor, the governments of Australia, Malaysia, and China made a difficult decision. The underwater search was officially called off. The effort, which lasted nearly 3 years, came at a cost of $150 million. But the families of those on board were not ready to give up. Just a year later, in January 2018, under growing pressure from the victims' families, the Malaysian government launched a new search.
Aviation's greatest mysteries could soon be solved with a new search commencing for MH370 off the coast of WA.
This time, they partnered with a private company called Ocean Infinity. Their vessels were equipped with advanced underwater technology, and these were capable of scanning large areas of the seabed at great depths. For months, Ocean Infinity's search teams explored the ocean floor, pushing further into the unknown. But yet again,
now, Ocean Infinity, they are operating this mission on a no-find, no-fee basis.
The sea kept its silence. No wreckage, no black box, no clear answers. The hunt for MH370 came to another painful halt, leaving the mystery unsolved and families searching for closure. Pieces of the missing plane. Despite the massive search efforts, no wreckage from the missing aircraft was ever recovered during those early operations. But over time, bits and pieces began appearing in different parts of the world. Close to 20 fragments believed to be from Flight 370 were discovered along the African mainland's coastline and scattered across islands like Madagascar, Mauritius, Réunion, and Rodriguez.
Piece of debris discovered off eastern Africa, possibly belonging to the missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370.
It was during the summer of 2015 that investigators made one of their most significant finds. A large object had washed up on the shore of Réunion, a French territory sitting in the Indian Ocean. After careful examination, it was confirmed to be a flaperon from a Boeing 777. This strongly suggested that it had belonged to the missing plane. More debris followed. In February 2016, a triangular piece made of fiberglass composite and aluminum with the words "No Step" clearly printed on its surface was discovered along an empty sandbank near Mozambique's coastline.
There's a high probability the debris is part of the skin of a horizontal stabilizer on the tail of a Boeing 777.
Not long after, in September of the same year, another major breakthrough came when Australian authorities confirmed that a wing flap found on a Tanzanian island matched the missing aircraft. The identification numbers stamped on it lined up perfectly with those of Flight 370's Boeing 777. Across all these discoveries, two of the pieces stood out for a different reason. They came from the cabin interior. This detail led experts to believe the plane had broken apart. But even with that, they could not say for sure whether the breakup happened in midair or during the crash into the ocean. Investigations into the Réunion wing flaperon and the right wing flap from Tanzania added another layer of understanding.
It's about 6 feet long, covered in barnacles and other marine life, a broken bit of wreckage that may hold answers to the mystery.
Their condition showed that the aircraft did not experience a controlled descent. In other words, it was not gently guided down for a water landing. Some researchers argued that the plane may have hit the water vertically, almost nose first, a theory that had surfaced even before these debris pieces were found. Meanwhile, most of the debris collected was used for drift pattern studies. The goal was to track how the currents might have carried these objects and possibly narrow down the area where the plane crashed. But even after all that work, the results did not bring anyone closer to the exact location of Flight 370. If you have been following this video so far and finding it interesting, do not forget to like it. It helps the channel grow and keeps you updated on future videos. New search, old questions. In July 2018, after years of unanswered questions, the Malaysian government released its final report on the disappearance of flight MH370. The findings left more frustration than relief. According to the report, a mechanical problem was seen as highly unlikely. The evidence suggested that someone had manually changed the aircraft's path. But even with this information, no one could say for sure what really happened to the plane.
Flight MH370 is deemed one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history.
The report crushed the hopes of families who had spent years waiting for some sort of closure. Many of them believed this report would finally explain why the aircraft vanished, but instead, they were left with more questions. Kok Soo Chon, who led the safety investigation team, explained the situation with care. He pointed out the manual changes made to the flight path and the fact that the transponder had been turned off. To him, these facts strongly suggested unlawful interference. Some took this to mean the plane had been hijacked, but the investigation could not confirm who might have done it or why. And the more you think about it, the more questions pop up. If someone really took control of that aircraft, how did they manage it so quietly? And if it was not hijacked, then what really happened up there? Then there is the fact that there are no claims of responsibility, no signs pointing to a group or individual, and the theory that hijackers would fly the plane all the way to the southern Indian Ocean never seemed to add up. Despite the confusion, the search for answers has never really stopped. In December 2020, nearly a decade after the plane's disappearance, Malaysia's Transport Minister, Anthony Loke, announced a new effort to find MH370. The Malaysian cabinet agreed, in principle, to a $70 million deal aimed at locating the aircraft.
On March 8, 2014, in January, Malaysia agreed to pay US firm Ocean Infinity up to $70 million.
The renewed search is being handled by Ocean Infinity, a maritime exploration company. They are operating under a no-find, no-fee agreement with the Malaysian government. This means the company will only receive the $70 million if they actually locate the wreckage within 18 months. Remember that Ocean Infinity had already led a similar search in 2018, which came up empty-handed, but they have since upgraded their technology. With these improvements, hopes are rising once again that answers could finally be within reach. How AI and drones are rewriting the search. The latest chapter in the search for MH370 brings together experience, science, and hope. At the center of this effort is Armada 7806, the massive deep-sea survey and exploration vessel designed for tough ocean missions. The ship is hard to miss. With its frame, advanced radar systems, and fleets of drones, it looks like something straight out of a futuristic research lab. But this is no ordinary ship. Armada 7806 has been sent to the southern Indian Ocean with one goal in mind.
The search will cover 15,000 square kilometres and be led by British firm Ocean Infinity.
To find the missing plane. Experts believe this new location holds the key. Based on updated analysis, the area covers 15,000 square kilometers, where there is now a high chance of locating the wreckage. Ocean Infinity combined information from earlier missions with the latest oceanographic research to identify this new target area. The ship is carrying some of the most advanced equipment ever used in a search like this. To scan the deep, Armada 7806 is equipped with cutting-edge autonomous underwater vehicles. These underwater drones are a big step up from what was used in past efforts. They can reach depths beyond 6,000 meters, and also stay underwater for nearly 100 hours at a time. The improvements in underwater drone technology are making a huge difference. The AI-powered drones are loaded with advanced sensors. These can map the ocean floor in extremely high detail. Unlike older models, the drones work entirely on their own, navigating deep-sea areas that were once impossible to explore. Their ability to operate independently in such harsh environments gives researchers new access to parts of the ocean that have never been properly examined. Artificial intelligence is also playing a massive role in the search this time around. AI algorithms are being used to process huge amounts of data, from satellite signals to ocean current patterns and old search maps. These systems can pick up on details and patterns that might have been missed by human experts. With AI involved, predictions about where the aircraft could be have become more precise. The search for MH370 has always been complicated. But with Armada 7806 and the latest technology, there is fresh hope. It may still be one of the greatest aviation mysteries of our time, but every new piece of data and every new tool brings the world a step closer to the truth. A search beyond the seventh arc.
The word from Malaysia tonight is that whatever happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 was no accident.
In early 2025, Armada 7806 made its way to the search zone located about 1,200 miles off the coast of Perth, Australia. Once it reached the area, the crew wasted no time getting to work. They sent out their autonomous underwater vehicles to scan the seafloor. These underwater drones travel across the dark ocean floor, collecting data as they go. The information they gather is sent back to the ship.
We had no idea which of those two was correct. So it either probably went to Kazakhstan or it went into the southern Indian Ocean.
Here, it is carefully studied by the experts on board. Only when the team is confident in their findings do they report anything to the Malaysian authorities. The decision to search in this part of the southern Indian Ocean came from calculations by the British company Inmarsat. Their analysis of satellite signals from MH370 suggested this region held the best chance of finding the missing plane. Those signals, often called handshakes, created what is now known as the seventh arc, a curved line across the ocean where the aircraft is believed to have gone down. But the current mission is not just following the same steps as before. Ocean Infinity plans to target a wider area this time, stretching between latitudes 33 degrees south and 36 degrees south. This expands beyond the original focus along the seventh arc. Blaine Gibson, an American independent investigator who has handed over 22 pieces of possible debris, agrees with this plan.
Who spent over 2 years scouring the world on a mission to find answers about the Malaysian plane.
But he also believes the search should not stop there. If nothing turns up between those latitudes, he recommends expanding the search north, all the way to 28.3 degrees south. He is not alone in thinking this way. Charitha Patiarachi, an oceanographer from the University of Western Australia, shares a similar view. Both he and Gibson feel that sticking too close to the seventh arc might limit the chances of success. They have pointed to a location called Broken Ridge as a key area that deserves attention. This underwater plateau sits at approximately 32.5 degrees south and 96.5 degrees east. According to them, it could be one of the most important hotspots in the search for MH370. New clues, new locations. Even with everything happening in the southern Indian Ocean, fresh ideas keep surfacing about where to look next. Independent investigator Richard Godfrey has brought fresh attention to a location he believes could finally reveal the fate of MH370.
Richard has spent the last 9 months using new tracking technology mapping the plane's final movements, and he believes he's found its final location.
According to his latest research, the plane may have gone down further north than where most of the previous searches have focused. He has called on Ocean Infinity to explore this new area, which stretches within a 30-kilometer radius centered on coordinates 29.128 degrees south and 99.934 degrees east. What makes this area so interesting is that less than half of it has ever been properly searched. Godfrey is basing his recommendation on results from the Global Detection and Tracking of Any Aircraft Anywhere system. This is also known as GDTAAA. The software uses data from WSPRnet, an international network that tracks radio signals sent out by amateur radio operators. The concept might sound complicated, but it works like this. Radio amateurs around the world send hundreds of signals every 2 minutes. When these signals pass through the flight path of an aircraft, they experience slight changes in their strength and frequency. Godfrey believes these subtle changes can reveal where MH370 traveled during its final moments.
Where an aircraft may have disturbed the radio signals, and you can pick up.
Not everyone is convinced, though. While some investigators find Godfrey's research interesting, others remain doubtful. Several experienced pilots have said they do not believe WSPR data is reliable enough to track aircraft with accuracy. That has sparked debates within the aviation community about how far technology can really go in solving this mystery. Godfrey is not the only one with suggestions. Other experts have also pointed to regions they believe deserve another look. For example, Belgian investigator Jean-Luc Marchand and retired Air France pilot Patrick Blely have recommended a fresh search around the area centered on 35.7 degrees south and 93 degrees east. This spot has not been explored at all. Meanwhile, Victor Ianello and Bobby Eulich, two American researchers, have proposed that another area be searched more thoroughly. Their focus is on a zone centered on 34.2 degrees south and 93.8 degrees east. This area has already seen some exploration, but Ianello and Eulich believe that previous efforts did not cover enough ground. Looking at all these recommendations, one thing is clear. The search for MH370 is far from over. Different experts with different tools continue to offer theories, and while there is no agreement yet, every suggestion adds another piece to the puzzle.
We have this data from this plane. Can we somehow use it to solve this mystery?
In a situation this complex, no idea can be easily dismissed. And even after all these years, the mystery of MH370 still leaves us with more questions than answers. It shows how vast the ocean can be, and how even with our modern technology, nature still holds the upper hand. But it also reveals human determination. These investigators, whether independent researchers or former pilots, are refusing to let this mystery disappear. It makes you wonder, with all this effort and advanced equipment, how close are we really to uncovering the truth? Or will this remain one of those puzzles that keep slipping just out of reach? Progress stalls, but the search isn't over. With all the new attention on possible locations and experts suggesting fresh search zones, it seemed like the investigation into Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 was finally picking up speed. But right when hope started to rise again, things took an unexpected turn. Malaysia's Transport Minister, Anthony Loki, made an announcement that the search has been paused for now. According to him, the operation had to be put on hold due to seasonal weather conditions and unavoidable commercial commitments. The search is expected to resume towards the end of 2025. That news hit hard, especially for the families of the passengers and crew who have been waiting for answers for over a decade.
More than 30 hours without any contact with the aircraft. We believe that the family members should prepare themselves for the worst.
For many of them, every delay feels like time slipping away, and the uncertainty only grows heavier. Still, even with the search paused, the work behind the scenes continues. Analysts and researchers have not slowed down. They are still studying ocean drift patterns, reviewing satellite data, and going through information gathered from earlier search missions. All of that data could be key when the operation picks up again. When the search resumes, it will target new hotspots in the southern Indian Ocean. These are areas identified through updated scientific analysis, and they are believed to have a higher chance of containing wreckage from the missing plane. Experts are certain these new zones could finally hold the answers everyone has been chasing for so long. It is frustrating to watch things stall after so much buildup, but it also shows just how complex this mission is. Yet, despite all that, people are still pushing forward. The investigators, the scientists, the families, they have not given up. Hope is a powerful thing. It keeps people looking, questioning, and believing that answers will come. Maybe not today and maybe not tomorrow. But as long as people refuse to give up, there is always a chance. If you have enjoyed this video and want to stay updated on the search for MH370 and other important investigations, make sure to subscribe to the channel.